So one of the things we're doing is we're doing a lot of YouTube shorts. Not this past week because I have been crazy with paperwork for her dance studio, but YouTube shorts are really driving a lot of our stuff. We're doing a lot of TikTok shorts to get the Gen Zers, and we're asking our guests to get out there and self-promote the episodes they're on.
In today's episode of my podcaster, we have Amanda Trisdale, the inspiring mother of teenage autistic dancer Lita and the CEO of the nonprofit Autistic Wings Dance Company. Amanda co-hosts the podcast Lita's Tap Styles, where she and Lita explore the intersection of dance and autism, sharing their unique experiences and insights while bringing a touch of humor to their discussions. Amanda's journey is particularly compelling. After facing numerous challenges in finding a supportive dance environment for Lita, she took the bold step of creating a dance studio specifically designed for autistic dancers. This groundbreaking initiative not only empowers her daughter, but also fosters acceptance and understanding within the dance community. She's here to share her inspiring journey on how she built the show from the ground up and the incredible impact it is making in the world of dance and beyond. Can you tell us your name and the name of your podcast?
Amanda Trisdale, and the podcast is Lita's Tap Styles.
Can you say that again?
Amanda Trisdale, and the podcast is Lita's Tap Styles. It's named after my 13-year-old daughter.
Can you, I heard what you said, but you said it's named after your 13-year-old daughter. So can you connect the dot for me?
So, my 13-year-old who tried to stay up, but her bedtime's 45 minutes ago, and she fell asleep on me, is my co-host. And she's a semi-professional dancer who works with choreographers in LA and in New York, and she loves tap, so she named it, she wanted to have a podcast about tap, but then she realized she had a platform, so we talk about tap and autism, but she kept the name as Lita's Tap Styles because it's her different styles of tap that she does.
Okay, now it all makes sense. How does the podcast?
So we have 2 episodes a week. On Tuesdays, it's usually Lita and I talking about her tap career. She unfortunately got bullied out of dance studios across the US, and so she has started her own nonprofit for autistic dancers like herself because she's autistic and just did not fit into traditional dance studios. And then on Fridays, we bring in experts from across the neurodivergent world. We bring in writers of kids' books about neurodivergency. We bring in people who are neurodivergent to try and pull back that veil on what neurodivergency is and how you can support people with neurodivergency in places like dance studios.
Wow. Did you tell me how old the podcast is? I don't think I got that part.
It is just over a year old.
Because you told me the schedule of when you release and your idea of the podcast. Well, I just did not hear wow, over a year old. Wow, that's fantastic.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. How's the podcast doing now?
It's doing good. We're extremely niche, so our numbers aren't great like some of the other friends of ours who do podcasting, but it's pretty decent for the niche area we're in.
Why did you think of numbers? Do you have a background in numbers? When I said, how's the podcast doing? You thought of numbers.
So my background is in get out the vote campaigns for political candidates here in the States, and I deal with data science on a regular basis, and my PhD is in theoretical physics, so I just automatically go straight to numbers.
Okay, no wonder. Because I was like, I wanted to see, is everything going well? Is everything smooth? Are we reaching? I know you guys are having fun, recording the podcast and having to chat with your daughter. That's some quality time there.
Yeah. It is fun. We have enjoyed getting to chat with. It's not only is it fun being able to chat with her, it's fun watching her interview some of these amazing PhDs and these leaders in autism research and in autism therapies, and they're taking her seriously just like they would take an adult podcaster, which is really fun for me to watch.
Wait. Something's not clear here. I thought you guys were co-hosts.
Yeah. She does a lot when she wants to. We bring in guests all the time, and she actually gets a lot of questions in for them, and she talks to them, which is amazing for me to watch them. I don't know. I'm a mom. I always like to say what great stuff my child's doing, if that makes any sense.
Okay, I know that I did not tell you beforehand, and if it's not possible, you just let me know, and we'll just move on. Is the podcast on YouTube?
It is on YouTube.
Would it be possible if you share the screen and we look at it on YouTube? I know it's going to spoil your sitting arrangement. I know, but please just let me know, and we can move on and talk about it.
Well, she's got a cute little thing right here. Let me just pull it up real quick and make sure it's in. We're looking at
Because I love the
the
viewer to see the style of the show if possible. And
yeah, give me 2 seconds to bring up the content.
yeah, take your time.
Let's see. Do you want the one we published 2 days ago? Would that be, you want the latest one?
And let's start from the YouTube channel and then we'll pick a video. Would that be okay?
Okay. Yeah, let me pull up the YouTube channel. It is late here. Sorry. It is late and I'm just getting a little tired. I am sorry.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, what time is it over there?
It is almost 9:00 p.m. over here.
Oh, so it's a setup you are using right now. I see you. You're sitting on our seat.
So yeah.
Wow, you can click on any of the videos. I'd love to just see you and
let's see. This one, I mean, get past, here you go. So we're up.
Wow. 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 Okay. Right now, I don't know from which part of the country you're calling from.
We're
No, what I mean is like our setup, the lighting and everything looks so fantastic that when it's standing next to yours, wow, that's brilliant. And wow, love the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was YouTube always part of the strategy, or was it something you added along the way?
So she's 13 and she's the very beginning part of Gen Alpha, and they live on YouTube. What TikTok was to Gen Z, YouTube has become again to Gen Alpha. So YouTube was always where she wanted to be.
Okay. Good choice. Good choice. It appears. Wow, you guys are getting a lot of views, and I mean, yeah, the listeners. Oh, it's pretty relaxed, and that's the sweet thing about podcasting. You know, it's two or three or more persons just having a conversation.
I think that's what I've enjoyed is we're having conversations and we're opening up a conversation to people who might not have the conversations we're having.
Yeah. Wow. I'd love for us to just like look at the YouTube channel generally, and if you could walk us with some of the things some of the like quote and unquote marketing strategy you are doing for the YouTube, that would be nice. If you want us to like, steal your strategy.
So one of the things we're doing is we're doing a lot of YouTube shorts. Not this past week because I have been crazy with paperwork for her dance studio. But YouTube shorts are really driving a lot of our stuff. We're doing a lot of TikTok shorts to get the Gen Zers, and we're asking our guests to get out there and self-promote the episodes they're on.
Yeah.
Help drive a little bit of the traffic.
You mentioned papers. Are you opening a dance studio?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of crazy things together. The 13-year-old Lita.
That's my can you do me a favor right now? Let's stop sharing the screen. Let me see your face. I love to hear about crazy things. That's the thing that excites me. Let's talk about the crazy things.
Okay, let's see. Did the screen share stop? Okay, hopefully it's stopped on my end.
I still see this.
That is driving me bonkers. It said it stopped sharing the screen.
It's strange.
Why does it not want to do that?
I still see the screen.
Let me see if I can tell it to hard stop this way.
I can't see this right now. I can only see a blank screen.
Yeah, and it's trying to say that it is sharing. So I'm going to try getting it on and stopping it again.
Okay. We're back.
Huh. That's interesting. It decided it wants to still share.
Ooh, but I can see right now.
That is weird on my end.
Okay. Can you? We could do something. You could leave and join again.
Yeah, let me do that. All right. Did that get rid of the? Yay, that worked.
Yeah.
I don't know My computer has decided it does not like me.
Are you sure it's a computer or it's just you?
I don't know.
It's all right. Okay, we'll stick with
Um,
the computer. It's a computer.
um, yeah, let's blame the computer. So Lita has been bullied because she has autism and severe dyslexia, and dance teachers don't understand what either means. And she got bullied to the point she decided she was done and she was just going to open up her own dance studio for people ages 3 to 99 on the autism spectrum. And so we opened in the middle of an economic downturn, we opened a nonprofit dance studio for autistic dancers.
Can you walk us through how long, how, I guess the question I want to ask right now, when did the idea to start the studio come up and how long, right? Because right now, I think we're in the final stage of having the dance studio. The
So the idea for the dance studio came up in about November of 2023. We got all the paperwork started in March of last year and opened the doors in September of last year, 2024.
I can was yeah.
We yeah we so she and I both got fed up with dance studios at the exact same time for the first time in November, December of 2023. We filed all the nonprofit paperwork in March of 2024, and we opened the doors to our first season in September of 2024.
Wow, that was pretty fast. March, September. That's March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Okay, that's about 7 months.
Yeah, it was really fast. We knew we had to go fast in order to get it off the ground, and it was a rough couple first months, and now we have the problem of we don't have enough space for the dancers because the local therapy groups in town are all like, oh, you want to dance and you're autistic, you need to go see these people, which is great. We just need to fundraise for a larger space.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's easier to fundraise when the idea is concrete compared to, oh, we're going to start a non-profit fund. We need sponsors. We need fund, right? Compared to, oh, we do have
It,
stuff and we don't, you could support.
yeah, it's a lot easier now that we've got kids, but I will say one of Lita's favorite dance shoe companies came on board to support us before we had even opened the doors,
Oh,
which I cannot thank them enough for doing that. They even just dropped a shoe for her last month.
oh, that's brilliant. So
But
just to be clear with regarding the support, the shoe they dropped, is it for just for her or for the dance studio?
it is going to be, to the best of my knowledge, their way of fundraising for us. They're going to put it on the website, and we will get a little bit of the sales.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah,
But
that's
I
really
mean,
nice. Yeah, it's a good
when
start.
you're 13 and get to go, this is my shoe.
Wait. Wait.
They created a shoe for her. Yes,
Aha. The way you
it's
said
her
they
shoe.
dropped a shoe for her, I thought, okay, one of those shoes they produce, they just like, give it to her and say, okay, take, you can use the shoe for dancing. So they created a shoe for her, like they created a Michael
No,
Jordan's, uh, wow, that's,
it is her shoe, and so she's kind of excited because she's like, I got my shoe. I'm only 13 now. What do I do in tap? Because tap dancing shoes are so important to them. It's one of those things you like spend your life hoping you're going to get, kind of like the basketball players. And they were like, hi, surprise, we designed a shoe for you.
how did this relationship even come about?
One of my friends owns a dancewear store. The way dancewear is done, it's kind of like Jordans and Adidas and Nike and Skechers, where you don't necessarily go to their stores to buy it. You can go to other people's stores. And my friend was talking to her rep from Sodanza, and her rep went, hey, we would love to sponsor that. And my friend calls me up going, hi, I just told them we just dropped or put in the paperwork with the IRS today, and they want to know if they can sponsor. So it was less than like 3 weeks after we had started everything, when Sodansa came up to us and went, "Hey, we've heard you're doing this. How do we get involved?"
And by this time, the podcast was like how.
The podcast had not even started by time Sodansa called about the dance studio and everything. They got involved, which I think is amazing for a multinational corporation to get involved that quickly in a crazy idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the idea is not so crazy now that it's coming to life. It's not like one of those, like, wow, that's really brilliant. It's wow, this is fantastic. So far, the podcast has been running. Before we go into some of other questions I do have to ask, I would love to know what's like the production of the podcast. Like, I know you mentioned you do release a show twice a week. Well, what's the production like? I'm guessing you're the producer.
Yeah, we have not gotten enough money to farm that out to anyone else yet. But the productions usually for the Tuesday podcast, it's the two of us. So that's normally like a 24-hour turnaround. Sometimes, depending on how things are dropping in the chat world, we've had a 2 or 3 hour turnaround where she's over here on the nice, comfy table. I'm over on a bar stool on the other side of the room for her so we can talk back and forth, but not echo into each other's mic. And we record everything on Riverside even when we're in the same room. It just makes it's so much easier. I absolutely love Riverside.
I feel like Riverside should come and sponsor me because now that everybody's talking about Riverside on my show.
I mean, I've had some friends who have tried it on Zoom, and I'm like, try Riverside. It's a lot nicer to do things with. The only thing I do is then I will pull it off and then I run it through Descript for the editing because it's easier to get the she has a weird name, and AI transcripts like to come up with 17 different versions of spelling her name. And when I'm trying to find her name, I find it's easier to do it in Descript.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only thing we do off there. And then it's uploaded to, YouTube. It's uploaded separately to Buzzsprout, run it through all the audio and all that fun jazz. For Friday, when we have guests, it's a little bit more work. And those I tend to take 4 to 6 weeks to edit and make sure they're right.
How do you find guests for the show on the weekend? Sorry. Yeah, the show towards the end of the
PodMatch seems to be our best place to find guests. It has rarely failed us with connecting us with the right guest, and sometimes connects us with people. I'm like, why did you make this suggestion? And then it turns out they're an amazing guest for us.
Yeah. Okay, so use PodMatch, use Riverside, use Discreet, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So like I know you do the editing, you do everything yourself, and the research, the one where she's interviewing guests, she does the research of the questions and all that. And
she doesn't. So a lot of the questions she has are so natural. She doesn't have to research them. She's been. I'm autistic. She's autistic. Her dad's autistic. She's lived in this world, and a lot of the time she's asking questions, going, and even when I'm asking the questions of guests, it's like, this will sound weird, but we've heard it from outside our community. Have you heard, what do you say to these questions? And a lot of the questions she's asking them to respond to are things she's been bullied about.
oh, okay. So basically, our research is she when she thinks of, let's say, a particular guest in a specific feed, she just sits down and say, okay, what are the questions I'd love to ask this guest in this feed, and then she just like brainstorm and comes up with the questions before the.
She does. A lot of times, most of the questions she's had them her entire life, and she's looking for someone she knows the answer before she asks it. She does have a very legalistic mind, or lawyer mind. She's picked that up from a bunch of my lawyer friends. Always know the answer to a question before you ask it is what they've always taught her. And she's looking for the answer, and she knows who can have those answers. Like, we had a nurse on the episode that we dropped on Friday. And Lita was like, one of the things I'm always getting bullied about is that my autism isn't a medical diagnosis. What does medicine have to say about that? And the nurse took off with, oh, no, honey, it is definitely a medical diagnosis. So because she's lived all this, she doesn't need to research necessarily the same way she would if she was from outside the community, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it makes.
But she also asks it in a very teenagery way.
Yeah. I mean, the sweet thing is that it's your show. You get to do it the way you want, and design everything. Yeah. Now I want to look at the podcast personally. I want to look at it as, okay, I want to say personally and family wise, because now it's not just you or just your daughter doing the show. It's more like, it's family show. I guess we could call it that. No, it's beyond
Family, though,
mother daughter.
I wouldn't say it's family friendly.
I wasn't even thinking about that. But I meant a show between mother and daughter. I mean, it's a show from a family, so it's a family show. That's the logic I'm using. I'm not saying it's a show for family
It
listen.
is.
I mean, family could listen to it, but
I've had to warn a few of her friends' parents going, we dig deep into a lot of this medical stuff. You may not want your kid listening to this already.
Yeah. Well, so the question now, how far so far in the past 1 year, and how far would you say podcasting has affected your lives? Personally.
I think it has made it where I feel like a lot more people are starting to tune in to more than just how do I want to put it? Autism is such a complex subject, and I think a lot of people from outside the community want to just paper over it and kind of pretend it doesn't exist, which is one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast, is how many times she's been told, oh, I love you, I'm going to ignore you have autism, by people. And I think it has really started to show me that help me understand there are enough people out there who don't think that. For her, she's actually gotten a lot better at having conversations. She is coming out of her shell in front of a camera, but she has gotten to the point, we've had guests come on 2 or 3 times and they're enjoying watching her bloom into someone who can pick up a microphone and have a much deeper conversation than she was having like last May.
Oh, okay. What about it?
I'm not good at talking about myself. That's why we have guests and her.
What about
I can deflect and go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've gotten a little bit better about talking about my personal story. It has been a little therapeutic talking to some of these amazing therapists and doctors and nurses and people, because I was diagnosed in the 80s in a time frame where I was told to hide my autism, and having these conversations about what I went through with these learned adults has actually kind of been therapeutic and cheaper in the long run than actually going and getting a therapy session.
Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode. If you had, now that you've been doing the podcast for 1 year, if you had the opportunity, do you wish that you started the podcast earlier, or you wish you started the podcast later?
I actually kind of wish we had started earlier, but I'm not sure she would have been ready for it earlier. But I have a blast doing it. I know she has a blast doing it. We've met so many amazing people through it. I really do kind of wish we'd jumped into podcasting earlier.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's for me personally, podcasting is a medium to, kind of work on your communication skill. especially when you're talking to a guest, you realize that, oh, I'm speaking too fast. Oh, the guest was about to say something, I just cut them off. That wasn't nice. And yeah, by the time you do it the first, second, third, by the time you're doing the 50th time, a lot gets to change.
Oh yeah. We tend to, because of what we're doing, we tend to have the same guests on over and over because we cannot fit all of the information they have into an hour. And they have all been gracious and come back on the show multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing relationship you've built by having them as repeat guests over and over.
Yeah, I called someone up like last week and went, "Hey, one of the parents at the studio had a question. I think I need a new podcast." And he's like, "Pick a day and I'll be there." And I'm like, "Thank you, because you are the expert on this subject."
Yeah, you are the expert. I have some questions. I'm gonna need some answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they've all been amazing. I mean, I don't know how PodMatch does it, but they have, I think Alex needs to come up with a way that we can for those of us who are re-interviewing guests, just go, "Hi, do you know how many times I've re-interviewed the same guest?"
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. I thought I was the only one. I've noticed it that the platform is designed for one-time interviews, except of course you'd have to email them outside of PodMatch. It would be nice if you can like invite the same guest over and over again for interview.
Yeah, we've started doing it outside of PodMatch, but I'll sometimes message someone I don't have their email going, "Hi, it's me again. You want to come on the show again?"
Yeah, and then you can send them the link. And this time it won't be tracked on PodMatch, but you get to interview them.
Yeah. But as much as I like numbers, I'd kind of like to see how many of us are interviewing the same people, just because they do have the
Yeah.
knowledge we need over and
Yeah, that
over
would be a
again.
good metric to really know who's a really good guest. Because most of the times people don't want to offend people, so they're like, he was such a great guest. He was a really nice guest as a review. But then you're like, okay, what is the percentage? I don't know what the numbers might be, but the percentage of repeat interviews. Guests tend to interview podcast hosts tend to interview these guests maybe 5 or 6 times more over the course of maybe a year. This guy, I mean, there's
And yeah, I think it'd also be helpful for guests going on to podcasts to see which podcast has reoccurring guests that people, because I think the same thing when I read
yeah,
some of the
both ways.
stills, I'm like, uh, yeah, but I think it would help as a guest, even just to see, hey, this person has the same guests on and on again. So they obviously don't make everyone completely miffed at them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if a podcast guest is willing to go to a podcast again, I mean, it's not a definite sign. But, I mean, there must be something there that you have to go there again and then again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that the podcast is it completely 1 year or is going to one?
So the first smaller podcast attempts, because we didn't go to a weekly podcast until June, but we had put out episodes 1 year ago, last month.
Okay, last month. Okay. Now that the podcast, congratulations on that. Yeah, a lot of podcasts quit first 2 months, 3 months, and here we are. We're doing over one.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. They don't tell you how much work it is.
Don't tell them the secrets. Why are you exposing the secret? Let them find out. Podcasting is not child's play. It's not meant for the
No, it's not.
yeah, you got to brace up when you get into it. And I feel that that's why I love Persons Quits because they sweet talk it, they hear all this stuff on media, and they're like, oh yeah, I should do a podcast. They don't really have a strong reason of okay, this is why I want to do a podcast. It's more about okay, if I start a podcast, I'm going to make gazillions of dollars, and then they start 1 month, 2 months, and you're like nobody's even listening to my stuff. Nah, this is not for me. I'm not going to do it.
What was one of my friends has a podcast that makes decent money, and his rule of thumb is 5 years. It takes 5 years for the podcast to make money.
5 years, man, that's a huge investment.
That was when he felt he started seeing decent enough money to call it his job.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, the thing is, if you take 5 years and you spend it into any this idea job, like 5 years, you should be seeing, except of course, but you should be seeing a kind of result that oh, I've been doing something for a while, but nobody wants to stick around till 5 years. Nobody wants to stick around for even 1 year, let alone 5 years.
And that first year, you're really starting to get your feet under you and starting to figure out how to actually swim and walk and not just tread water and fall down flat on your face on a regular basis.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's so true. I feel like that could be an episode of its own. And the funny thing is that when we start this episode and we start discussing that thing, most of the beginners, they're going to hear and say, "Oh, these guys decided a podcast. They don't want us to start our own podcast. They're trying to discourage us from starting our podcast."
I mean, it's not discouraging. I think if you know it's work going in, which thankfully I had enough friends who were bigger, I was like, oh, this is not, if you want it to be something that's paying the bills, you have to act like it's a job, which would be the same with even like her nonprofit. We're not taking money from it. We're putting almost every dime her dad's making right now into it. But the first few years of anything you're building is just difficult. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Still on the topic of crazy ideas, what are some of the crazy ideas or projections you have for the podcast?
Well, I would like to see it start making a little bit of money in the next few years so that we could send things like editing out to other people.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I would love to see it actually make a difference, which is really why we started it more than the money, was to make a difference getting the conversation going, especially with what's going on in the world today with autism and how it is a spectrum, but people are misunderstanding that entirety of the spectrum. And I would like to see it educate people so that kids like Lita aren't getting bullied just for who they are.
Yeah. I mean, if I do understand the goal, but how do we know that we're making the difference? How will we know that we're making a difference?
I think you don't necessarily know, but I would kind of like to hope
Yeah.
at some point I would know we were making a difference. I've worked politics long enough. There are sometimes I am still amazed when someone will come up to me who mentored under me 20 years ago and go, "You don't know what you did for me." And I'm like, I didn't even know I was that important to you.
Uh,
I just felt like I was the mean boss overseeing the interns and making you guys actually learn something.
yeah, yeah. There's always that strict boss. Then you realize that, oh, thank God that boss was that strict. I won't have learned this. I won't have been able to do this. I won't have been able to do this. I won't have been able to do this. And now I have all the skills, and I'm just living the life.
I'm the one who's like, you're interning for college credit. You better learn something here. So you're not just going and grabbing the coffee. You're coming with me to the meeting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The strange thing is, because I've done internship before, but the strange thing is that most of the time nobody really cares in the company. Like, you just show up, we show up, and that's it. At the end of the month or the time period, and that's it. And only rare occasions do you actually see companies actually wanting you to learn something. And some of the times the students end up complaining and say they want to kill.
Yeah.
uh,
I'm pretty sure that's what my interns have always thought. Because I'm like, hi, you're actually working because you're not going to learn anything if you're just sitting there getting the coffee or doing, the Xerox machine back in the day.
yeah. Wow. Back on the what we were saying, making a difference, right? Now, of course, we can't. It's not exactly what you can easily say. Oh, this is a number. What are the things you think you could do over the course of the next still on the idea of 5 years, right? 5, 10 years
Yep.
that could facilitate this goal. Like, what are the things we could do to really get to make a difference, right? And what I mean is,
I think,
you understand the question?
how do we make the difference or how do we know we're
No,
making
no,
the
no. How do
difference?
we
Which
make the
one?
difference? Not how do we know we make.
I think for us, it's continuing with the goal or with our bringing in people who aren't necessarily getting on these larger podcasts who have all that knowledge, but they're not bookable. It's not that they're not bookable guests, but they're not who those top 1% want to book because
Yeah,
they
Yeah, I know they're not celebrities.
At the top, yeah. At the top 1% wants the celebrities, and my child's the one going, why would you want them? Because she works with some of these celebrities, and she's like, they're not that cool. They're just people. This is what happens when you've known the celebrities most of your life. You're just like, they're not celebrities. They're just people. But I think it is that continuing to have, for at least us, it's that continuing to have that conversation and to never forget that's where our core is for our podcast, is that conversation on autism and how it intersects with the dance world, especially for Lita. That's where her heart is to try and show how the dance world needs to change to accept. They can't just say inclusive, they have to understand the inclusivity. And the guests we're bringing on the show are not guests that would even get onto a dance podcast because they work with neurodivergent kids. They're neurodivergent themselves. And I think that's how we continue to make the difference, is continue to be a place where they have a voice.
Yeah. Other than before, when I want us to go back a bit. When you started the podcast, right? Um, has PodMatch always been along for the ride, or was it something like 3 months, 4 months into the?
It was probably, so we started PodMatch in September. And it was because we decided we wanted guests. The first few months, it was just Lita and I. And then we were like, you know what? It'd be fun to have some guests on the show so people aren't just listening to the two of us all the time. And that's when we started PodMatch. And since then, we have had almost a guest a week on the show. And now we definitely do. Like Fridays, if we don't have a guest, I think our audience members would come for us going, where are my guests? But it has been really great for that, because I think having guests has helped the podcast grow, because not only does it give our guest a place to talk, but it gives us a little bit more respectability with some of our listeners, because they're like, oh, you had a PhD on the program. So obviously they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. How often do you um have to leave PodMatch and then probably go contact a guest via other platforms or via email or something like that because they are not Pod?
So the few times we have left PodMatch, it has not been us necessarily leaving so much as someone else has offered to come on the program and they have sought us out. Honestly, I love all of our guests we've had on, but PodMatch has made my life so much easier because it does kind of weed out guests without me having to do that work. And find the guests that truly do belong on the show. But I would say 95% of our guests have come from PodMatch.
Oh, one of the challenge I have, and this is me just talking, is I'm calling from Nigeria, right? And so I do have a pretty niche podcast
Yeah.
where I want kind of like Nigeria to to actually be interviewed, and it doesn't work for that. But every other thing, it's great. It's awesome. I use it for my other podcast. But that one, I don't know. Probably a lot of Nigerians are not going to PodMatch to find guests, and find hosts. So when they do, eventually, I'll be using.
Oh, yeah. On the dance side, we haven't used PodMatch as much, but we can just call up a lot of these people and go, hi, we're coming to LA. You're sitting in front of a microphone. The 13-year-old said you were, and they'll do it.
So where would you get their contacts from to call?
She works with them. So it's a lot easier to get their contacts because these are her mentors.
Yeah.
Or they're her mentor's friends, and it's a lot easier to just, instead of going through PodMatch, call someone up and go, hi, the child you have known since she was 7, 8 years old would like you on her podcast.
Yeah. 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 It's a good thing to be in the industry. You have a podcast in that way. It's easier to reach out to people that you see day to day or outside the podcast and just have a conversation.
Yeah, a bunch of her friends are scheduling time this summer to come on when they're not trying to do school and work at the same time. And I'm like, get it. It's hard to be in school and work at the same time.
When you say friends, are you saying friends of our age group?
Some of them are her age group. Some of them are a lot older. Some of them are my age group, and then they're mentors as well.
Okay. Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that so that
So
everybody, those that are
yeah.
listening, understand what you're talking.
She has been with Chloe Arnold, who is a huge name in the tap industry
That's the
over
episode you
here.
played
She is
on
one
YouTube.
of yeah. She found Lita when Lita was 8 during COVID and has mentored her. And Chloe's an Emmy-nominated choreographer who has worked with oh, my brain just went
Take your time.
The Late Late Show with James. The Late Late Show with James. Oh, I cannot remember his last name, but she did like all the crosswalk musicals with like Will Smith and all those guys on there. She has done a couple movies, one with Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. She choreographed them in a dance movie. So, and she works with choreographers on Broadway as well. So it has made our life easier because Lita can just call her up and go, "Hi, I need a dancer for the podcast."
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that idea. That's pretty.
It is start bugging your friends. And I know the dancers haven't shown up yet. They're all starting next month because just the way their scheduling has worked. But now they're all like, oh, now I'm nervous because like all these other people have been on your podcast and they're amazing and they're professionals. And it's like, you've been nominated for an Emmy. That might make you amazing to some people.
Yeah. 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 See, for one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of opportunity to talk to people because most podcasters, they want to speak with the celeb, the top, the popular guys. For me, I'm looking at who are the people that have the stories I want to interview for the episodes, and who are the people that have the expertise I want to interview for the episode. So if I want to talk about theoretical physics, for example, or astronomy, what do you call it? What's the astronomical? Why am I forgetting this thing? Okay, let's say theoretical physics, right? And I could look for the celebs on physics and the one everybody knows and watch on TV show, or I could look for someone who you know did PhD in theoretical physics, is a professor of physics, and is in the university, working on a couple of projects that nobody and probably they've never done an interview in their life, and just have them come and chat. They're an expert in that field, whether or not you know them or not. They have the qualification.
And I think that's the best part about the podcasting, especially not wanting those big celebs, is I think most of the people we've brought on the podcast are celebs to me, but it's because they've published in the Neurology Today or they've published in one of the other medical journals. And I'm like, I'm geeking out here because you've published in a journal.
Yeah.
And they're like, most people don't consider that celebrity. I'm like, they don't know, but you published more than one paper in this journal. That makes you impressive.
Yeah, and a lot of the times they usually love to talk about their work because on rare occasions, the people really ask them that, "Oh, this journal you published, I'd love for you to come on my podcast and really talk about it and explain it to the layman, like the laymen and women." Like,
And we've had someone on who's doing researching a paper right now, and we managed to reach out to her while she's in the research stage. And I'm like, can we keep bringing you on to keep us updated on it as you're publishing?
yeah, that would be brilliant. Like document the process along the way, and yeah, just get to ask all the questions. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Um.
And it's an amazing paper because it's going to be how to use dogs to help kids learn.
Ooh. Ooh. I know that's like the simple layman statement. I know that the title has like a very complex scientific jargon.
Yeah. And she's like, and not just dogs, cats, and miniature horses and snakes. And I'm like, I am so there for the rest of this paper.
Everything was going well until I had snakes. I was like, nah, not that part. Like every other part, but not that snake part. Oh, that would be an interesting episode and an interesting. Like you guys could do a series on.
Yeah, we're planning. She was kind enough to agree to do a series. We've already published the first one, and we're going to catch up with her over the summer once she's kind of had a chance to look at what she's done this year and just keep chatting about it for the next few years as she gathers her data.
Yeah, yeah. That would be brilliant. And then you could make a playlist on YouTube for people to like easily access it if they want to like reference it back. And
Yeah.
oh, thank you so much.
And I think that's what I love about oh
No.
but yeah, that's what I love is having the same guests on and being able to watch their research.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. The same thing with me for podcast is I'm having this conversation with guests and I'm excited to see where their podcast, go to what they do with their podcast, depending on what their purpose, right? For you now, the purpose of your podcast is way different from the host that I'm gonna make $1 gazillion from the podcast. And I'm excited to see what gazillion does. I'm also excited to see you make a difference with the podcast.
I mean, I wouldn't turn down $1 gazillion.
That's true. We never really got to talk about money. Does the podcast make money?
But yeah, it does. Right now, we're making just enough money to cover the PodMatch fees for every month. It is actually coming from the guests we're interviewing on PodMatch.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, PodMatch. Wow.
I mean, the fact that they pay us hosts to interview guests is amazing because no other platform's paying you to interview guests.
No, like imagine the amount of profits they could have kept to themselves. Yet they're like, oh, let's share it with the host.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons we went with PodMatch was they seemed like they were very
cared about the
host-oriented,
host.
which means it's got to be guest-oriented because you have to have good guests to keep the host around.
I mean, you have to have the host in order for the guest to be on the platform.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I kind of assume that since they're caring about the host, they're making sure there's good guests on the platform.
Yeah, so because if the host are not there, and if the host like the serious hosts are not on the platform, then guests will land on the platform, and probably 1 or 2 months after, nobody tries to interview them, and even if someone tries to interview them, it's just a show that nobody knows about, and it's not really aligned to what they want to talk about. Yeah, that's true.
But it is.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amma. I'm really glad to have heard your story. I'd love to do like a part 2 or a series out of this, and then probably maybe when the show is 6 months from now or maybe a year from now, if anything major, maybe when you finalize the IRS papers and the non-profit is up and running. And yeah, I'd love to continue this conversation over the course of the next year. How do I say it? Over the forthcoming year.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel it's pretty relaxed. You have your pretty setup there, so it's gonna look nice on YouTube. So
this is supposed to be her current dance board, but she said it's too pretty to dance on, so it became part of the set.
Ooh, too pretty to dance on.
I'm not sure the small business who made it for her appreciates that completely, but they do like seeing their product in her shop. So.
Yeah, that's nice. You didn't turn on the lights today.
It's they put her. Let's see if I can bring it up a little bit.
Okay, careful.
It's got the podcast name on the bottom of the board.
Okay, what's that one over to where your hand is currently? What? Okay, down.
That's the name. Dance Days. That's the name of the dance board company. It's Dance Days Dance Boards.
Okay.
It's one of the companies she works with.
Well, yeah. I think that's the beautiful thing about having a niche podcast. Is like it's easier to talk to companies, talk to brands, and then compared to like being a super broad podcast, which is good, but then you like a podcast for almost everybody, and yeah, it's really different.
They've actually supported her. She started working with Dance Days Dance Boards when she was 9.
Oh, that's about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was to replace a worn out board, and she's like, "No, that's my favorite board. I won't replace it."
Yeah. I'm so with the way the podcast is doing 1 year into it and the support and everything. I just cannot imagine what I'm trying to imagine, but I know that whatever I imagine, you guys are going to surpass that. Yes, in 3, 4, 5 years from now, please, when any major success, you get monetized on YouTube, anything that you consider a win that you love to talk about and chat with me on this podcast, please shoot me an email or message me on PodMatch, whatever, right? And let's
I
schedule a
will do
time.
that. Hi, thanks so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Before I forget, where can listeners learn more about you, the podcast, and just check the amazing things you do?
So the podcast is Lita's Tap Styles, Leta apostrophe S Tap Styles. The website is Lita Tap Styles without the S. I don't know what I was thinking that day. .com. It has everything about the podcast. It has a page of all of our former guests and links to their YouTube episode and to their episode on our BuzzFeed website. You can.
Did you say
I
BuzzFeed or
kind of
Buzzsprout?
sometimes keep up. Buzzsprout.
Okay.
I said BuzzFeed. It is going to be one of those nights.
Okay.
Buzzsprout. But it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on Amazon, it's on all the major platforms if you want to stream it on your favorite podcast streaming service.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks again.
Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording. You use Riverside. That's it for today's episode of My Podcast Story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.